President Trump announcing he will end temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Under this initiative, immigrants who can't return to their home country safely due to war or natural disasters are allowed to stay in the U.S. President Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that he will terminate the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. In his post, he says the reason is, quote, Minnesota, under Governor Walz, is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. I am, as the President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the Temporary Protected Status, TPS program, for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over, President DJT, end quote. Somalia's protective status currently runs through March 2026. Now tonight, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar responding to Trump's post on Twitter, saying, I am a citizen and so are majority of Somalis in America. Good luck celebrating a policy change that really doesn't have much impact on the Somalis you love to hate. We are here to stay.
I mean, I have no worry. I don't know how they take away my citizenship and like deport me, but I don't even know like why that's such a scary threat. Like, I'm not the 8-year-old who escaped war anymore. I'm grown. My kids are grown. Like, I can go live wherever I want.
Now, if someone is no longer eligible for protected status, it's denied, and the deportation proceedings begin. In Trump's Truth Social post, he specifically says he is ending temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. If the program ended, it would be for the whole country. In order for it to end, it would have to come from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem.
They knew about it for so long. Why didn't Tim Walz do anything about this?
Because the Somalis have a lot of political power in Minnesota, and they're very quick to accuse any opponents or anyone looking into their business as a racist, as an anti-immigration bigot, and therefore the political establishment in the state of Minnesota, especially the Democrats, are scared to go after Somalis for anything at all. And therefore, the Somali community has been ripping off Minnesota taxpayers to the tune of multiple billions of dollars and sending some of that money to overseas terror organizations. It has to stop.
Well, and I got to say, Dustin, this is wild because the Minnesota police chief, the Minneapolis police chief, raised this issue of this Somali gangs, I guess, and talking about the crime. And he basically had to apologize.
Yeah, and to your point and what Chris has stated, it all comes down to a lot of the time, people are afraid of being called a racist. This goes all the way back to Omar Fattah, even with Feeding Our Future. When you look back at that time, Tim Walz had the ability to do stop payments on Feeding Our Future before they stole $250 million. Omar Fattah actually ended up going out there publicly and stating that it's because our state government is actually racist. And they ended up vying through that. And if you look at Minnesota in our 2022 election, we actually had 2 statewide seats come within 1 percentage point of actually winning for Republicans. So when we're talking about 100,000 Somalis in the Somali community, but only tens of thousands of votes being the margin of victory for Republicans, that's a voter base you simply don't want to upset. But now what has it gotten to us? We are going back to, 2014 when this all started? Yeah. 2018 is when Walz enters office, but
it gets worse.
We're not talking about hundreds of millions, we're talking about billions at this point, and whistleblowers within DHS in Minnesota predict that it could exceed $6 billion.
And tell us what the most shocking thing you discovered in your reporting.
It's just the scale. I mean, this is unprecedented. It's in a massive amount of money. And what I think has to happen now is that the president, the Secretary of State, have to take a tough look at the Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, program. You have a lot of these Somalis have come in on this program, and instead of being grateful for the opportunities that they have in the United States, they're ripping off taxpayers, taking money away from kids with autism, kids with other disabilities, and then sending it abroad to fund, in some cases, acts of terrorism. The president can shut this down tomorrow by revoking the TPS status for the Somali community in Minnesota. And let me be clear. If you are not a United States citizen and you're involved in ripping off taxpayers, you should be in jail or gone tomorrow. I think we've experimented with mass Somali immigration. It's failed. It doesn't work. It's time for them to go home.
Well, TPS is a program that was always meant to be temporary. It's a program that is put in place, and I believe for Somalia over 30 years ago, and will need to be evaluated to make sure that it comes and is always implemented in the process for which it was intended. So that's something that will go forward, and I know that the President wants to bring integrity to our programs and make sure that they're applied appropriately to the individuals and to the countries to which they're supposed to benefit. We plan to follow the process that's in law to evaluate TPS and how it applies to different countries and individuals from then. It was never meant to be an asylum program. It was always meant to be put in place after an incident or an event on a temporary basis, and that's what the evaluation will be. Yes.
Can you tell us why just Minnesota, or
The evaluation applies to how the United States of America interacts with the country when it comes to temporary protective status, and so traditionally and according to the law, it gets applied across the country.
So Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, both progressive Democrats, reportedly received hefty campaign donations from players in a massive scheme to defraud the federal government. A Minneapolis-based nonprofit called Feeding Our Future received about $197.9 million to provide meals to hungry children adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. But now an FBI investigation, which included a raid of the nonprofit's headquarters, revealed that essentially none of the money went to feeding kids. Instead, the FBI alleges Feeding Our Future conspired with local businesses within Minneapolis's East African immigrant community to falsify records and to move the money to private accounts. One of the key players in the scheme is Safari Restaurant, a popular Somali eatery in South Minneapolis, which claims on its website to be the only African cuisine in Minnesota. The restaurant was reimbursed $15 million. It says it spent serving 5,000 meals a day to children between May and November of the year 2020. But in reality, Safari Restaurant's owners were taking a page out of BLM's book and purchasing expensive homes, including a $2.8 million Minneapolis mansion and a $1 million home in suburban Plymouth, Minnesota. Now, Safari Restaurant is a significant donor to Ilhan Omar's campaign, and the restaurant has hosted Omar events such as this election night bash back in 2018 for midterms.
Well, the Congresswoman has not responded specifically as regards the Safari Restaurant. However, her team did put out a very generic statement, painting in broad strokes, saying that they're aware that there's some corruption going on, referencing Feeding Our Future, and saying that they're concerned to see how this will develop, but no specifics.
So not even any kind of, hint that maybe they might be giving the money back at all?
No, there's been no indication that the Omar campaign will return the thousands of dollars it's received from Safari Restaurant this election cycle. Of course, these are all just allegations. The FBI has accused Safari Restaurant of stealing $15 million. Supposedly, Safari is a cash-flowing business, so maybe the money Ilhan got from them was clean, but $15 million is a lot to be accused of stealing by the FBI, and Omar has not addressed her ties to that restaurant specifically.
And also in the article, it talks about some of the shell companies, it appears, that I should say is alleged Safari Restaurant to have been creating to kind of hide some of the money, buying mansions and even some expensive vehicles as well, correct?
Absolutely. So the owners of Safari Restaurant, there are multiple, have purchased very expensive homes. As you mentioned, a $3 million house in Minneapolis, so basically $1 million house in Plymouth. They also purchased a pickup truck worth in excess of $70,000. They've been living large. I mean, this was a huge infusion of cash into the pockets of multiple scammers in the Minneapolis area. And Safari is just the tip of the iceberg. As you mentioned, there was over $190 million that was diffused, according to the FBI, mostly into the hands of scammers here in Minneapolis. So there's a lot of people who are eating really good, but unfortunately, those are not the hungry children.
I know, and just thinking about Minneapolis in general, I know a lot of money in Ilhan Omar's district, a lot of activists in the area. They've been sending a lot of money to other campaigns and races in the Seattle area as well in Washington, including to a woman who back in, I think it was around 2010 or so, she actually boarded a school bus full of middle school children and threatened to blow up and to bomb the bus. And when the kids started to run away, she made fun of them and mocked them for being afraid of her. And she was, talking about her Islamic faith and saying, oh, do you think I'm a terrorist just because I'm it was crazy. And yet now she's running for a local county position in the Seattle area, and some of the money her campaign's been getting is from the Minneapolis area. So we see this corruption and basically its tentacles all over this nation. So also in this article, it mentions the mayor of Minneapolis and some of his involvement. Talk to us about some of those ties as well.
Of course. So the FBI says that there are 6 people named in their search warrant that were allegedly in receipt of these stolen funds that also donated to Mayor Fry's campaign. 2 of those people are owners of Safari Restaurant, the corrupt restaurant that's also funneling money to Ilhan Omar. A third person, not at Safari Restaurant, but still in the Minneapolis nonprofit space, is named Abdiakar Mohammed. He runs an organization called Stigma Free. So Stigma Free is running, basically, according to the FBI, the same scam that Safari is running, where they're colluding with Feed Our Future to receive millions and millions of dollars and then funnel it for their own personal gain and some of the money apparently back into the pockets of the mayor in the form of campaign donations. What's interesting, though, is that Stigma Free was originally incorporated by a Minneapolis city councilman, Jamal Osman. There are no ties between Jamal Osman and the corruption, but it's very interesting that this organization was founded by somebody in city government, passed off to somebody else who is involved with city government, and then they stole funds and funneled it right back into city government. So it seems like over the last week or so since this story has broken, everywhere you look in Minneapolis, there are allegedly stolen funds, and it looks like the depth of this corruption is going to take months to fully uncover.
I know, and it's not like, Ilhan Omar and her campaign hasn't been accused in the past of, some funny business with some of their campaign money. For example, with some of her relationships in the past with her, with some of the people she was giving money to and getting donations from. So, this is perhaps old hat at this point. But when it comes to the FBI, do we know perhaps what comes next in their case?
Interestingly, no charges have been filed, but the home of the woman who controls Feeding Our Future, the organization at the center of this $190 million scam, her home was raided by, according to some reports, up to 200 law enforcement officers. The headquarters of her business were also raided by a sizable team of law enforcement officers. So while we haven't seen any charges, and the FBI has been relatively silent since the initial search warrant was disclosed to the public, it's very likely that we're going to see more movement in the future, and we'll keep reporting on that at Alpha News.
And if you could distill down perhaps some of the most surprising aspects or some of your biggest takeaways from the story, what would it be?
Well, the biggest takeaway for me, Alpha News is based here in Minneapolis, and the Minneapolis political life orbits around these nonprofits. I mean, Feeding Our Future is huge here in the state of Minnesota, in Minneapolis specifically. Everyone knows what Safari Restaurant is in local politics. Everybody knows about Stigma Free. I mean, these are the organizations that make local news every week for the supposedly good things they're doing. And to hear that they have stolen almost $200 million, according to the FBI, it's shocking. It's incredibly disruptive. And we're feeling the ripples, from these allegations in every corner of Minneapolis political life. The second takeaway is this is what happens when you rush these COVID aid programs. In Minnesota and the nation more broadly, we saw this huge push to, shut down schools, have masks, have all sorts of COVID measures. One of those measures was this spending program that wasn't oversought at all. And now the federal government's having to come back in and pick up the pieces after this rushed COVID program failed, to nobody's surprise. And this isn't the only COVID program that's failed in the Twin Cities area. St. Paul, the sister city to Minneapolis, recently had a man plead guilty to basically $900,000 of paycheck protection program fraud. So it seems like every day we're uncovering more and more millions of dollars of COVID-related fraud here in Minneapolis, and it's reaching basically every progressive politician in the region.
Well, here in California, we're pretty much in the same boat. You're a blue city, we're a blue state. Same thing here. Billions and billions and billions of dollars get passed every year into budgets for example, the homeless crisis. And yet the homeless crisis only seems to get worse, and a lot more, bureaucrats get added to the staff payrolls. And of course, their wallet and their pocketbook keeps getting fatter and fatter while the crisis gets worse and worse. So we have
What is your response? Comment below. That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.